The president has been committed to the refugee program and to rebuilding it and regaining our status as a world leader in the refugee affairs since day one. And that has been unwavering. We're very proud of the announcement today, and it reflects that enduring commitment.
Well, there you have it. President Joe Biden has raised the cap on refugees to over 62,000. We've got our friend Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies joining us now to talk about what Secretary Mayorkas just said. And as this administration, Mark, is still very much struggling to deal with the escalating surge of migrants at the southern border, tell us why increase the cap on refugees when you're having 1,000 gotaways a day and 170,000 apprehensions at the U.S. border on a monthly basis?
Good question. On Twitter, I joke about this kind of thing. When there's a news story like this, I'll put solution, more immigration. Well, they seem to have taken the joke seriously. Their border is in bad shape. We've got hundreds of thousands of people using claims of asylum, which is part of the refugee law, as a gimmick to get into the United States. And now we're adding to that by increasing the number of refugees. There's an interesting twist, though. They're not going to be able to admit 62,000 refugees this fiscal year, which ends at the end of September. One of our people blogged on this, and his kind of cynical take on it is that one of the reasons they did this was not just in response to the left going bonkers when he didn't do it earlier, but when he announces next year's refugee cap, which is expected to be 125,000, it won't seem like as big a jump. He will have just doubled the number instead of increased it eightfold, which is what he's going to be doing. So I think there's a couple things at play here, none of them good and none of them likely to deal with better management of refugee issues.
So is it likely then that some of the people who are coming across the southern border right now illegally, whether they're apprehensions or they're apprehensions who are trying to just come in or surrendering themselves to Border Patrol, going through the processing, we show some of the migrant facilities here alongside us on the screen, can some portion of them end up qualifying under the expanded refugee number that the Biden administration has just announced, or is that a different process? I mean, all this seems like it after a while, the public must have a difficult time. I think people covering it have a difficult time following what's exactly going on here.
Yeah, it does kind of run together, frankly. But no, the people who have already snuck across the border, even though if they claim asylum, they're judged by the same yardstick, whether they qualify as refugees. Under our law, refugees are people we go and pluck out of some foreign country and bring here. Asylum is for people who break in and then say, you can't make me leave because I qualify for asylum. The one area where there's two areas of significant overlap. The first is there's something called the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which deals with refugees once they're here, which is also tasked with taking care of all of these unaccompanied minors who have come over the border and finding who their relatives are and delivering them. The other overlap is that Biden has said what he wants to do is set up refugee processing in Central America, where we don't have refugee facilities now, so that if people are picked, they would just be flown directly over the border. The Border Patrol would never see them. They'd just be delivered directly to the interior of the United States. So there's no question that these two parts of our system, refugees and asylum, are related, and they do overlap, but they're not exactly the same.
How high are the bars, how high is the bar, I should say, for those who are trying to come in through this expanded CAP program? Because one of the issues that I told you, Mark, offline, I just came back from McAllen, from the Rio Grande sector. I know you've been down there too. One of the issues that keeps coming up is that you have people who, they're economic migrants. They want to be in America. They don't want to be in, whether it's a Central American country or a lot of other countries, over 60 of them from around the world. They think America's a better shot, and I understand that. but that's not what refugee status is for. Is the program that the cap has been raised for also easy to game in the same way, or is it unlikely that people can just play the system even when they wouldn't be falling under the traditional category of a true asylee?
It's harder to game refugee system precisely because you're not already in the United States. The way people game asylum, which is they claim persecution, the same kind of persecution as refugees have to show, but if they sneak across the border, they get an initial screening interview to see whether their fear is credible. It's called a credible fear interview, is a shorthand for it. In other words, is Mickey Mouse talking to them through their dental work or not? Almost everybody passes it. And then under Biden policy, and Obama too, they just let go into the United States and said, okay, file for asylum somewhere. Whether they win, lose, apply, don't apply, doesn't matter. They're already here. They're never going to be located and removed. Whereas if you're in a refugee camp in Kenya, yes, there's some gaming in the sense of you can try to bribe the UN officials that oversee it. There is some of that going on, but it's a lot harder to game than asylum. That's why asylum is actually probably a bigger threat to the integrity, to the sovereignty of the United States than refugees, because we have more control over the refugee resettlement program.